Looks that way. But keep in mind, there are some things that could block the total regionalization. And a lot of these are the ones that you and I have discussed before. On one side, you have the Western financial system in the state of the United States. If you woke up this morning, you discovered that, at least on paper, oil had risen to $90 a barrel, but that oil coming off the ship was now worth $140 a barrel. And I just got off the phone with somebody telling me that it's now beyond 100 on paper. It had reached, or beyond 90 on paper, it reached $100. The reason I bring that up is at the same time, the 10-year bond yield this morning when I woke up was 4.65. It's now, I'm told, close to 4.7.
This is what the federal government has to pay to borrow money.
You got it. And the 10-year bond is what everybody looks into. I mean, if you talk to Luke Roman or Jeffrey Gundlach as good examples who really follow the bond markets carefully, they'll tell you when you get to 5, it's toast. You're done. We can't service the debt. We can't pay it. Everything will begin to implode. And of course, on top of all of this, you have inflation that is rising uncontrollably. The Fed can't fix this. It cannot artificially suppress rates. It can't extricate us from this mess. So the question is, when do we hit 5%? I don't know. Robert Barnes, who knows things from the inside of the White House better than I do, says that in the past, Trump was always careful. As soon as he saw this thing go over 4%, get close to 4.4, 4.5, he would quote unquote taco. He's not tacoing this time. So I think we're headed into really, really rough times financially. And that could bring all of this in the Gulf to a halt because we simply can't afford it, can't continue it. And the second constraint is, of course, missiles. We could run out. And we're already low on that score. And that's almost as bad as running out of oil. Because on the oil side, the Chinese, who've been holding back, they're starting to deplete their own strategic reserve. And if they join, these oil starvation club, the world's in a lot of trouble. All of us are in trouble.
I'm going to guess that it's a foregone conclusion that the Pentagon did not consider all this. We know they didn't consider the Strait of Hormuz being closed, so why would they consider the consequences of it being closed?
Well, it's hard to understand. Everybody, the first thing you do is consult the Treasury before you do anything. I mean, anyone who's done anything anywhere for any reason has always done that. The man who never did it and behaved much as Trump has is Churchill. Churchill paid absolutely no attention to the burgeoning debt, the enormous quantities of money that were spent during the First War. When he was Chancellor of the Exchequer, he refused to revalue the pound and kept it at the same value that it had before the war, that is, in gold. That did enormous damage to Great Britain. When World War II ended, and of course, by the end of the First World War, the debt to GDP ratio in the British Empire was 130%, which is roughly where we're headed. At the end of World War II, it was 240%. So we're on the same kind of path to imminent disaster.
I wonder if the man in the White House who brought virtually all of this on himself understands this.
I don't know. He seems to be under duress. We've talked about that before. I think that he's adopted the Israeli position, which is whatever happens, Iran must be destroyed. I think he's there. He's also taken the position that we cannot back out from Ukraine, even though we don't want to be involved. And even though we'd like to cut our losses and get out, we can't abandon that because that's part of the larger global attempt, in my view, to fight with all of our means to preserve American political, financial, and military dominance, essentially to retain the 1991 global order, but also to put Israel at the center of it.
Colonel, why is the United States building up men and material in the Middle East? Is the president preparing for a land invasion in 110-degree temperature?
Well, I think there is definitely a desire now to look at what you can do along the West Coast and south coast of Iran. We don't have the ground forces to invade Iran. When people talk about that, they've got to understand that your army today is a shadow of its former self. It's minuscule. The forces that we have over in the Gulf region are quote unquote light forces. These are paratroopers and Marines. They have to be delivered by V-22s or helicopters. You're not going to get very far with those. And yes, it's 110 degrees. That has a big impact on the performance of rotor wing aircraft. It has a big impact on human beings having to operate in that environment. And when you begin to look at the availability of water, interestingly enough, the only island in the Gulf that has a fresh spring from which you can actually draw water is Karg Island. All of the other islands are rocks. So if you're going to go there, you want to land on something like Abu Musa, well, you better bring your own water with you. So that means what happens if you go ashore at Chabahar? Even if you can get there, what are the Iranians going to do? I mean, there seems to be this view that the Iranian leadership will panic and immediately say, please stop. We're willing to trade whatever you want. Just give us back our islands or give us back Chabahar. I don't think so. I think they'll look at that and they'll laugh and think that we're fools to overextend ourselves. They'll encourage us to double down and make it worse. And then they'll drop everything they own on top of it. And it'll be a catastrophe of an epic scale in the history of ground operations of the U.S. Armed Forces. That's what I think, but we'll see.
Colonel, the bombing in June failed to produce any result. The bombings in March and April failed to produce any result. Now we have bombings again in July, presumably going into August. What makes them think that the result will be any different? Or are these bombings in preparation for some ill-conceived, poorly crafted, poorly populated, as you just told us, nearly suicidal land invasion?
Well, let's stick with poorly crafted in any case, whatever it is. I think you're absolutely right. It's ill-conceived and poorly crafted. But I'm beginning to think that he may be the victim at this stage of the gambler's fallacy. You know, the gambler steps up and he keeps losing. But he decides, he's won before. He knows what he's doing. He's smarter. And he's going to go in there one more time and he's going to give it all. And he loses everything. I think we're approaching that stage with President Trump. Before he gives up, he wants to be absolutely certain that he has committed everything available to him and done everything possible to win. And remember, he has people like General Keane and General Kellogg and others telling him, sure, take Karg Island and you win the war. Even General Wes Clark was making those kinds of statements, much to my shock. I don't think it makes a damn difference whatsoever to the Iranians what we do on Karg Island. It's just an opportunity for them to wipe out ground forces and make our lives miserable. But I have a feeling he's caught up in some of that. And then you still have the promise of special operations. As we've discussed before, special operations, they're some of the best people we have. They'll do whatever you ask them to do, but they're not supermen. And they're very fragile. And things can go wrong very, very quickly. So, I think we're at this point of let's pull out all the stops. We'll make it one major big push and we'll succeed.
Colonel, let's look at the other side of the coin. Might the Iranians attack and seize Kuwait? I mean, there's as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, a heavy concentration of U.S. troops in Kuwait.
Yeah, well, Kuwait was always viewed as a potential platform for the projection of U.S. Combat troops to Karg Island. If you look at the map, how far away is Kuwait from Karg Island? It's a very short distance. And you want to minimize the amount of time that you're in the air. So it's natural that we would do that. On the other hand, could Iran invade it? Sure. Do they have to? No. You might instead see Iraqi, what would you call them? Iraqi army or Iraqi militias that are Shiite. They could easily go into Kuwait and seize control of it because the Kuwaiti military is in no position to stand up to them. And it's kind of interesting because I and a lot of other Americans thought we were defending Kuwait and liberating Kuwait from Iraq about 35 years ago.
Right, right. George H.W. Bush.
That seems to have been another illusion. So, no, I think that could happen very easily, but they don't have to commit much of their own military power to that. The Iraqi militias or army can do that. And Iraq is unambiguously aligned with Iran, another product of our many interventions in the region.
Should the Iranians bother to negotiate with Trump's real estate agents? Or is the Iranian view of American negotiators that they're utterly untrustworthy and incapable of making a commitment and sticking to it?
My impression is that neither the Russian leadership nor the Iranian leadership, or for that matter, the Chinese leadership, trust President Trump or anyone in his administration. They have no confidence in the consistency of his policies, and most important, the stability of his administration. His decisions are unrooted in any long-term coherent strategic view. They're all hasty and tend to be last-minute conclusions based on erroneous information. And he doesn't seem to think that whatever he decides to do will be remembered 2 weeks after he did it. International investors are not going to go into any of these countries. They're not going to go into Ukraine. They're not going to go into the Middle East and repair or rebuild or reconstruct anything, because they have no confidence that Trump won't start another war or reintroduce some other new stupid idea that puts everyone at risk. So the short answer is no one trusts us at all anymore. And then you add to it again what we were talking about before, the fragile financial condition. I just don't see any good news right now as we move toward the fall. None.
After 100 days of this, do you have a comfortable handle on why Trump started this war?
Yes, I think you pointed this out and others have, and I think they're right. Donald Trump in the last administration wanted nothing to do with the war against Iran. I saw that up close. I don't think that this time around Donald Trump really wanted to go to war. After all, he joined this conflict after Netanyahu launched it. Do you remember? We were late to the party. The Israelis began bombing, and then the phone rang, and he said, "Okay," and we got on board. But I think that he was told, and I think he believed it, by people in the intelligence business, particularly the Israelis, and some of his close advisors, the people that he personally trusts, that this would be over in 3, 4, maybe 5 days, that the government would collapse, either through assassination or sheer terror. And then the Iranian population would rise up and remove the government, which he was led to believe everybody hated. Well, that failed. So when regime change was a dead end, what was the goal? The new goal was, well, we've got to bomb and missile the Iranians into submission. And effectively, that means we've got to compel the disintegration of the Iranian state in the country. That's really what the Israelis want in any case, just as the NATO globalists in France, London, and Germany all want to see Russia fragmented, divided, and then effectively destroyed, and then exploited, obviously, by their financial friends. And I think that's the same thing going on with Netanyahu and unfortunately with President Trump. Whether or not he's always understood that